Great, thank you. Can you see me? Great. Okay. I can't see myself, but thank you. Thank you for having me today and allowing me to testify. So I am simply here today to bear witness to what I see every day as a public defender, to what I've seen as a black man, and to why I do this work. I am the public defender of Alameda County. It is one of the oldest public defender offices in the nation. We were created in 1927, over 30 years before the Supreme Court case of Gideon versus Wainwright was decided. There have been 8 public defenders before me. I am the 9th. I am the first person of color to hold this position, the first black person to hold this position. Now that is appalling, considering it's Alameda County, Berkeley, Oakland, home of the Black Panthers, one of the most liberal parts of the nation, and it wasn't until 2012. That is appalling. And so for about 5 years, up until October of last year, I was the only chief black public defender in the state of California. Let that sit with you for a second. California has 58 counties. There are approximately 39 million people in California. 250,000 of them are lawyers, and there are only 2 black chief public defenders. It's absolutely shameful, especially when you consider the population we serve. But it is not shocking considering the history of America. So I do this work. I became a public defender because of my upbringing, because of what happened to me, because of what I saw happen to my community. So real quickly, my mom was a single parent. She was very young. She was in high school. I personally have been stopped and harassed by the police more times than I can remember. One of my cousins was severely beaten by the police in New York. When he was in college, he suffered a traumatic brain injury. He never graduated, ended up on federal parole. Another cousin suffered from mental health issues. He began to self-medicate with meth and crack. He was deeply involved in the criminal legal system, and he ended up dead shortly after I became chief public defender. One of my uncles, to help raise me, was sentenced to 27 years in prison for armed bank robbery. I was a sophomore in college. So that's why I do this work. And the thing is, my story is not particularly unique. Like so many black people in America, I've been proximate to the harm. I've been close to the harm. I've touched the harm that this criminal legal system does. The system is a testament to the legacy of slavery in this country. And I begin most of my talks with that introduction. But it seems so much more appropriate for today, considering the topic around reparations and the criminal legal system. This system has had an impact on every black person, from getting to talk when you're a young child, from having those personal contacts with law enforcement, to having family members that have been harmed and removed from your life and community. This is what happens to black people in the United States and in California. And with that being said, we have a complete lack of representation in jobs, make decisions about what is happening to our own people in this system. So many have said that slavery is not an aberration in American history. It is at the heart of our history. It is a main event. It is a central foundational story. And that is so true. It is so true. But if we stick with that only narrative, we sell ourselves short. Because slavery is not a thing of the past, it is present. The criminal legal system is another form of control, another system of terror, and another system of slavery. The 13th Amendment tells us that, right? Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as punishment for crime. It did not make slavery illegal, it just gave it a different title. So I remember my very first day as a law clerk with our office and going to North County Jail to do interviews, to talk to our in-custody clients, and going through a locked door and a locked door and another locked door, and then seeing what was called a holding tank. And on the other side of this glass, in the size of what would be a large living room, except without anything comfortable, cement blocks and metal chairs, it was just a sea, and I mean a sea of black faces. About 30 to 40 black men. Everyone was black. I remember being a younger deputy public defender and going to a massive criminal courthouse and the department and seeing black person after black person after black person come out from their custody holding cell to make their appearances. In that very same courtroom, you hear deputies say to the judge, Your Honor, the bodies are here now. Or a judge would say, can you bring the bodies down to court? Bodies. Now, I remember sitting in a courtroom after losing a trial and listening to a judge sentence my young black client to 41 years to life for breaking into someone's house and stealing CDs. Sitting in a holding cell, talking to an 18-year-old young black man who really has a child because he was 5'6" and about 135 pounds, talking to him about taking a plea bargain for 30 years state prison instead of risking going to trial, spending the rest of his life in prison. Talking to someone in custody about the fact that his lawyer is the only person he can have a private conversation with on the phone. Because every time he makes a phone call and tells his kids goodnight, or tells his wife he loves them, or gets news about his mom passing away, or wants to tell someone that he's scared about what might happen, every single conversation will be recorded and turned over to the prosecutor. That means he can't talk to anyone on the phone about the facts of his case, about what to do, to get advice about what is your plea bargain and go to trial, because every single one is recorded. And we have to remember this person has not even been convicted of a crime. The only reason they're in this situation is because they're too poor to afford bail. Sitting in a courtroom about to start a trial with a young black man, and you see the 70 prospective jurors walk into the courtroom, and you begin to scan the room and count how many black people are there, and you see 3 potential black jurors, like, okay, I've got 3, and then 2 are removed for hardships, so they can't afford to be on jury service. Then you have 1 left. You have to tell your client, I'm sorry, that there's going to be no one on this jury that looks like you. Not a single person. And there's a chance that this jury could be all white. And that is a terrifying, and I mean terrifying feeling. Innocent people, mostly black and brown, in nearly every county across the state are taking plea deals because they are too poor or don't have the money to afford bail. Innocent people who are black and brown are taking plea bargains to avoid spending the rest of their lives in prison. Young black kids everywhere today are being lied to by police right now in order to get them to confess to a crime they did not commit. And I can go on and on and on about what we see, but the driving force behind almost everything we see is racism and class. And you've heard the stats.
1 minute.
You've heard stats about how many black people are incarcerated, about black men receiving sentences that are 20% longer than the average white man, and 1 to 3 men go to prison. You've heard all the stats, and I'm not going to repeat them. But particularly when it comes to Alameda County, in my backyard, there are stats you haven't heard. And one that I'll tell you is that our jail, Santa Rita Jail, is humongous. It's the 3rd largest jail in California. It's the 5th largest jail in the nation. It holds almost 4,000 people. It is 48% black. Alameda County is 11% black. So, I've been asked to not be all negative in my comments, to tell you about some successes. We've made some strides. We've made things better. There have been some laws that have been passed. And I have to tell you, it's important to have public defenders and community-based organizations at the discussions because they're essential. We've been at the table, we've been able to pass laws like SB 310 to allow people with felony convictions to serve as jurors. We've been able to pass AB 3070 that this allows excuses often used by prosecutors to remove black people from juries. We've been helpful to pass AB 2542, Racial Justice Act. There's so much more that has to be done. I'm talking about bail reform, ending 3 strikes, ending LWOP, ending juvenile strikes, eliminating the trial tax, getting rid of the death penalty, increasing diversity on juries so black people have a say in the outcome of criminal trials, increasing mental health services in the community. We have created a system, and we put money, billions of dollars, towards policing, prosecution, probation, and parole, all systems of control, and we spend very little money on the group, the organization built to fight mass incarceration, to protect people's rights, the right guaranteed in the Constitution, the right to counsel. We do not fund offenders. And that by itself creates systemic unfairness. So I'm possibly the only public defender you'll hear from over the course of these hearings. And I'm obligated to tell you this part, and I'll tell you over and over again. The criminal legal system today is racist. It is built on a legacy of white supremacy. There's nothing just about it. It is not fair. It is not colorblind, and it does not treat people equally. It does not. So, it's not just a system, of course. Most crime has its roots in economic inequality, racism. So that means in order to affect the criminal legal system, we have to start outside that system before people end up in that system. We have to fund schools, fund social services, raise wages, fund childcare, and so much more. But any path forward towards true liberation of Black people in America, for true reparations, we must include a critical evaluation of our criminal legal system and the will to completely tear it down, restructure it, reimagine it, so that prison, incarceration, retribution, class, racism are not central to its design. So many have said that slavery defined our nation before the Civil War, and mass incarceration defines our nation today. But we public defenders spent our lifetime fighting for our clients, fighting against mass incarceration, fighting racism, and we're a central part of the solution. Funding us would be revolutionary. Reimagining our legal system would be revolutionary. Reparations would be revolutionary. So thank you for allowing me to make these comments today.
Thank you.